When the community considers the majority of maps to be survivor-sided, then there is a bit of an issue in the game, I think. Today we're counting down the most survivor-sided maps, so let's begin with number 10. Ever Sleeping Town got 38% of the votes being survivor-sided. But we're not just talking about the normal Ever Sleeping Town, we're talking about the L, the large version of Ever Sleeping Town. This is very different than the normal Ever Sleeping Town if you've ever played on it, and this is because it is a duos map. This map is massive, and due to its huge open spaces, this can be a very difficult map for hunters to play on. Another one of the big reasons is that there are very strong kiting loops. Although in normal Ever Sleeping Town, there is a hole on the 2-story buildings so that the hunters can drop down as soon as the survivors vault the window, there are no holes in any of the 2-story buildings, and you have to just go through the window and then follow them back around again. Oh, and we can't forget that there is a bigger and stronger variant of the graveyard compared to the normal Ever Sleeping Town map. Number 9, Leo's Memory, Daybreak variant. This again is a map that you don't see very often, but we only get around the time of Christmas. This one got 39% of the votes voted towards it being survivor-sided. I think one of the reasons why this one is considered to be more survivor-sided is possibly the fact that the map is more visible and you can see from much further away when there is a hunter coming. I guess this could also be considered a benefit for the hunters, but maybe survivors consider this to be stronger. I'm not completely sure why this one is at number 9. Lakeside Village is next up with 40% of the votes considering it to be survivor-sided. The reason why this is a survivor-sided map is quite obvious. There are two incredibly strong areas in the map. One of them being the big boat. The other strong area is of course the little boat and the areas around there that have lots of walls and pallets for you to use. You can of course loop towards the boat and then go toward the walled area that can again waste a lot of the hunter's time. It's a very big map, and a lot of hunters do suffer when it comes to big maps because they have to transition much further away. And the more time that you spend transitioning, the more time the survivors have to decode. Moonlit River Park is at number 7 with 43% of people voting it to be survivor-sided. I would say that Moonlit River Park has possibly one of the strongest, or debatably the strongest kiting area in the game, that being God Kite and that kind of area over there. By going up to the 2-story, you can then easily transition to the God Kite area, and then from the God Kite area, you can then, of course, transition back towards the 2-story. But if they want to transition away from this area, now they have to travel a very long distance to be able to find another survivor, who again is in a very strong kiting route. It seems like there's a theme here with huge maps. I also think that Moonlit River Park has very good cipher placement. That might be another reason why survivors favor it so much and why hunters have such a difficult time chasing here. Arms Factory is in at number 6 with 46% of the votes being survivor-sided. This map was kind of controversial because a lot of people also voted it to be quite balanced, saying it was neither hunter-sided nor survivor-sided, but of course the majority did vote for it being survivor-sided. The reason why this is more survivor-sided is probably because of the very strong walled areas in the map that make it very difficult for some hunters and the majority of hunters to be able to chase in this area. You need to have some type of ranged ability just to be able to catch up or deal damage. For some hunters that don't have any ranged abilities or are very chase dependent will suffer a lot in certain areas, such as in the factory area that is one of the strongest areas in the map, and in of course ruins and sandbags area. Now we're finally getting into the top 5 guys. Which ones do you think are going to be in the top 5? Tell me down in the comments below. And if you like this video and would like to see more types of videos like this in the future, remember to press the like button because I've got another variant of this video coming up soon about hunters and also about which ones are the most balanced maps in the game. At number 5, we have Chinatown with 47% of the votes considering it to be survivor-sided. This map I personally would not consider to be survivor-sided, but a lot of you considered it to be that, so I'm trying to analyze why this could possibly be. I do think that it's possible that the reason is that there is a big cipher separation, meaning that hunters have to transition a long distance to be able to pressure any of the cipher machines, meaning that you can quickly spread out your team and decode in a safe manner. I think verticality also comes into play here because a lot of hunters suffer with verticality. A lot of hunters cannot deal with any type of vertical abilities since their abilities are quite linear. Possibly also the fact that there are huge blocks of buildings separating streets, meaning that you cannot access one of the other streets without going all the way around, does give the survivors a good chance when they know that there's a hunter nearby, because you can easily just transition in the opposite direction of the hunter and they'll just have to waste even more time. And let's not even mention how strong Priestess is on this map. At number 4, we have Golden Cave and Leo's Memory with 52% each. Golden Cave is considered to be slightly more balanced than Leo's Memory. That kind of shocked me, to be honest. Golden Cave has multiple different levels to it. 3 technically. This is one of the reasons why it's so strong, because a hunter who's on a top level cannot see any of the survivors on the bottom level. The survivors on the bottom level are quite safe to decode, and also it makes it very difficult for a hunter to locate the survivors. So once again, the survivors have quite a good advantage. And the fact that the gates are on completely different opposite sides of the map, also on completely different levels, makes it almost necessary for the hunter to take teleport, meaning that survivors can prepare for this. Leo's Memory is a pallet haven. This place is probably the best place if you like pallet spamming. Pallet spamming is a strategy that's becoming more popular, especially in mid-tiers now. It does just waste a lot of time. Leo's Memory is the best place to do this, and if you have fast pallet dropping, then this will be even better for you. Leo's Memory has very strong kiting areas, and they are relatively close together and easy to transition between. Oh, and we also need to remember that Factory is incredibly strong. Now we are in the top 3. At number 3, we have White Sand Street Asylum, with 60% of the votes considering it to be survivor-sided. This is very obvious to me, as this is an enclosed map. This definitely 100% benefits survivors because it makes it incredibly and almost impossible to locate survivors in some cases, because you may have tinnitus as a hunter, but you cannot see the person who's on the other side of the wall, and the only way to get to that wall is by transitioning all the way around and finding a hole in the wall. By then the survivor is already gone and you've lost their scratch marks. The fact that there are a lot of pallets, a lot of windows, and the fact that when you're kiting, the hunter can easily lose sight of you makes it very difficult for even ranged hunters to be able to deal damage to survivors since they don't know your exact location. We also cannot forget that there are some hunters, for example Lucino and Mad Eyes, that are almost unplayable on this map. At number 2, we have Darkwoods, with 66% of people considering it to be survivor-sided. This is the newest map in our roster. This is one of the only maps that is not in rank mode that are, of course, not special maps or duos maps. I think even Netties themselves consider this map to be unbalanced because there are some incredibly strong loops that are almost infinite against certain hunters. This can be, for example, the Big Tree area or the Lumber House loop. These 2 areas are incredibly strong, but also there are tons of pallets all around the map that mean that you can easily transition all the way from one side of the map to the other side of the map without having to go through any big open areas. With so many strong kiting areas, any survivor can easily take advantage of this if they do know how to kite, of course. And since there are so many different elements and different walls in the map, it's also very difficult to see survivors at a big distance. Again, you cannot monitor your surroundings. At number 1, the most survivor-sided map of Identity V, with 72% of you considering it to be survivor-sided, that is crazy, is Sacred Heart Hospital. I was very shocked to see this have such a high voting as to it being survivor-sided, but I can understand why a little bit. This is probably due to the fact that the strongest kiting area in the game, arguably, is in this map, that being Hospital. Hospital is an incredibly great place for you to kite and loop. You can get to it from any part of the map. You can transition from the ruins, you can transition from the shack, you can transition from any cipher towards the hospital and then extend your kite indefinitely. There are, of course, lots of survivors that have abilities that benefit from this 2-story building. We've already talked about how 2 stories can be very good against many hunters. But for survivors like Toy Merchant, Patient, Priestess, these places are incredibly great for you as a survivor. Once again, there are really great cipher placements that are very spread out and are in very key areas for you. If you want to see which hunters the community thinks are the strongest in Identity V, then you need to click this video here and see if your predictions are going to be right about which hunters are the strongest in Identity V.